1. Don't chase the applause, chase the assignment. You weren't put on this earth to perform, you were placed here to fulfill. The crowd may clap for your moments, but legacy is built in the quiet grind. You don't need a stage to be significant. You need obedience to your purpose. Let others chase the spotlight. You chase the calling. 2. Fame fades, but faithfulness echoes for generations. The spotlight is temporary, it shines and moves on. But faithfulness, that lives on in the hearts you touch, the lives you lift, and the values you pass down. Legacy isn't loud, it's lasting. It's not in your name being known, it's in your impact being felt long after you're gone. 3. Legacy is built in the dark, not on the red carpet. Everybody wants the results, but nobody wants the responsibility. Legacy is built when no one is watching, when you show up anyway, speak truth anyway, serve anyway. The red carpet doesn't define greatness. What you do when the cameras are off, that's where legacy lives. 4. The limelight can blind you, but legacy will ground you. Be careful, chasing the limelight can make you forget why you started. It can steal your humility, your discipline, your vision. But when you're grounded in purpose, when you live for something bigger than you, that's when you rise. Legacy doesn't inflate your ego, it anchors your soul. 1. Don't chase the applause, chase the assignment. There is something hollow about applause. It sounds impressive in the moment, echoing off the walls of a packed room. But when the noise fades, so does its effect. Applause doesn't sustain. It doesn't build, it doesn't guide. The world is addicted to claps, clicks, and the fleeting sound of recognition. But none of those things hold weight when your soul is empty, when your purpose is lost, or when you're lying awake at night asking, is this all there is? That's why chasing applause will always leave you hungry. But chasing your assignment, your calling, your mission, your God-given reason for being here, that will leave you full, that will leave you grounded, that will outlive you. Many people start their journey with a passion that's pure. They just want to help, they want to heal, they want to inspire. But somewhere along the road, attention creeps in and clouds the vision. Suddenly, it's not about the purpose anymore, it's about the performance. It's about who's watching, who's sharing, who's celebrating. But that shift from purpose to performance is the moment the soul begins to starve. The assignment was never about being seen. It was about seeing a need and stepping into it, seeing pain and bringing healing, seeing potential and calling it out. When you chase applause, you may get attention. But when you chase your assignment, you get impact. The applause is addictive because it's immediate. It comes fast and it feels good. But the assignment often comes quietly. It whispers. It's not in flashing lights or booming speakers. It's in moments of stillness when you realize that the gift in you isn't for applause, it's for a purpose. And that purpose won't always make you popular. Sometimes it'll make you isolated. Sometimes it'll pull you into seasons where you're doing the right thing with no recognition. But in those moments, you're being built. Because your legacy isn't shaped in the spotlight. It's forged in the silence when no one's clapping, but you keep moving anyway. Too often, people believe success is tied to visibility. But there are people who change the world and never make the headlines. There are teachers, mothers, fathers, janitors, nurses, mentors, and servants of all kinds who will never trend online, never stand on a stage, never have their name written in books, but their assignment is changing lives. And that's where true power lies. When you stop trying to be seen and start focusing on what you see, that's when your purpose ignites. Because the assignment isn't external, it's internal. It's something planted in you that doesn't require validation to grow. It just requires obedience. Chasing applause creates a performance mindset. It says, let me do what they like so I can get what I want. It's transactional. It's built on approval. But chasing the assignment creates a purpose mindset. It says, let me do what I'm called to do, even if no one sees it, even if no one claps. It's transformational. It's built on conviction. That difference will determine the quality of your life and the reach of your legacy. One path makes you a performer, the other makes you a vessel. One path needs noise to feel worthy, the other finds worth in silence. One path ends when the audience walks away, the other keeps going because it's anchored in something deeper than applause. There are seasons where the applause is loud and the assignment is hard. And there are seasons where the applause is gone and the assignment gets heavier. What you need to decide is, which one will you keep walking for? Because if applause is your fuel, you'll burn out the moment people stop watching. But if purpose is your fuel, you'll keep going no matter who's in the seats. That's the kind of resilience purpose gives you. It doesn't depend on admiration, it's rooted in alignment. People are often drawn to the stage, but forget that the backstage is where the work happens. It's where the preparation lives, the sacrifice dwells, the character is built. The assignment usually takes you behind the scenes, into the places where there are no cameras, where you're grinding, growing, and developing in obscurity. That's by design. Because if your character doesn't match your platform, the platform will crush you. That's why the assignment often leads you to the wilderness before it leads you to the promise. The wilderness is where your intentions are purified. It's where your heart is tested. It's where you learn how to serve without needing to be seen. It's easy to perform when people are watching, but can you obey when they're not? Can you keep speaking truth when no one's clapping? Can you keep building when no one's buying? Can you keep giving your best when no one's noticing? Because that's where real leaders are made. That's where legacy is born. Not in the shouts of fans, but in the strength of faith. Not in the volume of attention, but in the depth of your conviction. Some of the most powerful moments in life are the ones nobody saw. The late-night prayers, the silent sacrifices, the decisions to keep going when quitting looked easier. The conversations that brought someone hope, the small acts of kindness. These are legacy moments. They don't come with a soundtrack. They don't go viral, but they are eternal. Because they were part of your assignment, and that assignment is bigger than you. It touches people you'll never meet. It reaches generations you'll never see. And that's the power of living for more than applause. There's a lie in our culture that says, if they don't see it, it doesn't matter. But the truth is, the most important things in life often happen unseen. Roots grow underground before the tree ever bears fruit. Seeds are planted in darkness before they ever break through the soil. Your assignment is the same. Just because it's not seen doesn't mean it's not significant. Some of your most impactful work will never be acknowledged by the crowd, but it will be remembered by the people you touched. It will be known by the one who sent you. When you live for the assignment, you start to ask different questions. You stop asking, how many people like that? And start asking, was I faithful to the moment? You stop asking, did they notice me? And start asking, did I make a difference? You stop measuring by followers and start measuring by fruit. And fruit takes time. Fruit doesn't come instantly. It grows in seasons, in struggle, in silence. But when it comes, it nourishes, it multiplies, it lasts. The applause fades, but the assignment fulfills. That's why so many people who make it still feel empty, because they achieved what they thought they wanted, but abandoned what they were created for. Success without purpose is a shell. It looks full on the outside, but it's hollow within. That's why some of the wealthiest people feel the poorest, why some of the most admired people feel the loneliest. Because the applause was loud, but the assignment was left behind. So how do you live for the assignment? You start by asking what you've been gifted to, not what you're praised for, but what you're called to do. You pay attention to the burdens that break your heart, the injustices that stir your soul, the talents that feel like second nature to you. You align your actions with your purpose, even when it costs you visibility. And most importantly, you stay faithful in the small things, because the small is where the assignment starts. It's where your integrity is tested. It's where your humility is formed. It's where your heart is refined. The world needs fewer performers and more people on purpose, people who aren't swayed by trends, people who aren't moved by likes, people who show up because they're sent, not because they're seen. People who understand that a quiet life of purpose is louder than a noisy life of popularity. Because in the end, applause can only echo so far. But impact, that echoes through eternity. There's a freedom that comes when you let go of needing the crowd. You stop second-guessing your moves based on public opinion. You stop tailoring your truth to fit into people's boxes. You stop comparing your journey to someone else's timeline. You walk with confidence, not because you're the loudest, but because you're aligned. You know why you're here. You know what you're called to do. And no amount of noise can distract you from that. The temptation to chase applause will always be there. The world is built to reward appearance over substance, hype over heart. But you've got to decide whether you want to be remembered or just noticed. Because those aren't the same. Being noticed gets you claps. Being remembered gets you legacy. Being noticed builds your name. Being remembered builds others. The assignment isn't about making yourself famous, it's about making a difference. And the best part? When you live for the assignment, You don't have to chase applause, it finds you when it matters. But by then, you're not dependent on it. You've learned how to walk in purpose, not performance. You've learned how to build in silence. You've learned how to serve without needing the spotlight. And that's where true strength lies. That's where peace is found. That's where legacy begins. 2. Fame fades, but faithfulness echoes for generations. There's something seductive about fame. It promises validation. It offers recognition. It gives the illusion of success. But when you pull back the curtain, you realize it's fragile an echo that gets quieter with time. What looks like the pinnacle is often just a platform built on sand. Because fame is loud, but it isn't lasting. It's a flame that burns hot and fast, but eventually it flickers out. And when it does, all that remains is who you really are. What did you do when no one was watching? Who did you lift up when no cameras were rolling? How did you serve when you had no audience? These are the questions legacy asks. Because fame may write headlines, but faithfulness writes history. We live in a time where fame is a currency. The number of followers, views, and likes are seen as measurements of value. People will compromise their morals, sacrifice their peace, and even abandon their families just to get a taste of being known. But being known isn't the same as being remembered. And being seen isn't the same as being significant. Fame demands attention, but faithfulness demands commitment. And that's where the difference lies. One is about building a brand. The other is about building a foundation. One is about popularity. The other is about purpose. Faithfulness is underrated because it's not glamorous. It doesn't come with flashing lights or red carpets. It doesn't trend on social media. But it lasts. It's consistent. It shows up day after day, in every season, through every struggle. It's the mother who prays over her children when nobody sees. It's the mentor who shows up for his students even when he's exhausted. It's the friend who chooses loyalty over convenience. These people may never go viral, but their lives carry weight, because faithfulness leaves fingerprints on the future. It leaves seeds in the soil of time. And long after the spotlight moves on, faithfulness still speaks. Fame asks, how many people are watching? Faithfulness asks, who am I serving? Fame says, look at me. Faithfulness says, how can I help you? Fame is about applause. Faithfulness is about assignment. And if you're not careful, you'll trade your assignment for attention and lose everything that mattered in the process. Because the applause will fade, the fans will move on, the attention will shift. But the impact of your faithfulness, that can last for generations. Think about the people who changed your life. Chances are they weren't the famous ones. They were the faithful ones. The coach who believed in you, the teacher who stayed after class, the parent who worked multiple jobs, the pastor who kept showing up with a word for your heart. These people didn't do it for fame. They did it because they cared, because they were planted, because they understood that purpose isn't about being seen, it's about being sent. Faithfulness isn't about being perfect, it's about being present. It's not about having all the answers, it's about showing up anyway. You may stumble, you may struggle, you may want to quit, but faithfulness says, I'm not here for the outcome, I'm here for the obedience. That kind of mindset is rare because it doesn't feed the ego, it feeds the soul, and that's what makes it powerful. It builds things that fame could never sustain, because fame can get you in the door, but only faithfulness can keep you there. The tragedy of chasing fame is that it often leaves you empty. Even when you make it, you can be admired by the world and still feel unknown in your own heart. You can be praised on stage and still feel purposeless behind the scenes. Because what people celebrate about you isn't always what sustains you. Applause can't heal you. Recognition can't guide you. Only faithfulness can do that. Faithfulness to your values, faithfulness to your calling, faithfulness to your growth. That's the path to peace. That's the road to legacy. Legacy is not about how loud your name is. It's about how deep your impact goes. It's about whether you lived in a way that shaped others, whether your presence left people better, whether your life pointed people higher. And legacy is never built in the limelight, it's built in the trenches. It's built in the early mornings and late nights. It's built when you say yes, even when you feel like quitting. It's built when you choose integrity over popularity, truth over comfort, and service over self. Fame demands that you climb, but faithfulness demands that you dig. And those who dig deep into character, into truth, into discipline, they are the ones who build something that stands when the storms come. Because fame is fragile, it can be taken in a moment. One mistake, one rumor, one shift in public opinion, and it's gone. But faithfulness? That's anchored. That's rooted. That doesn't rise and fall with emotion or trends. It stays. The reason faithfulness is so rare is because it doesn't come easy. It requires sacrifice. It requires patience. It requires surrender. You don't get to skip the process. You don't get to fast forward to the fruit. You have to go through the seasons, the pruning, the planting, the watering. And that process, it doesn't look impressive, but it produces something that no platform ever could: depth. And depth is what sustains destiny. Fame can feel like power, but it's often a prison. You become trapped by expectations, enslaved to public opinion, and burdened by the fear of losing relevance. But faithfulness sets you free. It says, I'm not living for their approval. I'm living for the assignment I've been given. That's where confidence is born, not in being famous, but in being faithful. Not in being celebrated, but in being consistent. Not in being recognized, but in being rooted. Look at the greatest movements in history. Look at the people who left a mark. They weren't the ones chasing fame. They were the ones who answered a call. They said yes when others said no. They stayed when others walked away. They worked while others slept. They gave when others took. And because they were faithful, the world was changed. Maybe not overnight, maybe not with fanfare, but with faith, with dedication, with relentless obedience to something bigger than themselves. The world may never fully appreciate the faithful, but eternity remembers them, and people feel their presence long after they're gone. That's what makes faithfulness powerful. It's not about building something flashy, it's about building something forever. And forever is built one moment at a time, one choice at a time, one act of service at a time. You don't have to be great to start, you just have to start with faithfulness. We need more people who are committed to showing up, even when the room is empty. People who speak truth, even when it's unpopular. People who choose purpose over platform. Who measure success not by followers, but by fruit. Who know that fame can get you a crowd, but only faithfulness can change a life. Faithfulness isn't flashy. It won't always be praised, but it will always produce. It builds businesses that last. It nurtures families that thrive. It creates art that heals. It speaks words that linger in the heart long after the speaker is gone. And it echoes through generations not because it was loud, but because it was true. So if you're overlooked, underappreciated, or underestimated, keep going. If you're building in silence, sacrificing in private, or giving your all with no recognition, don't stop. You're not wasting your time. You're planting a legacy. You're writing a story that fame could never capture. You're living a life that will outlast the applause. Because the truth is, when the lights go out and the crowds go home, what matters most isn't who knew your name, it's what your name stood for. And if your name stands for integrity, service, love, and unwavering commitment to your purpose, then you have lived well. Not just loudly, but faithfully. 3. You don't need a stage to be significant. Purpose starts in the shadows. We've been conditioned to believe that in order to matter, we need to be seen. That success is validated by applause. That significance is measured by stage time, spotlight, or social proof. But that's a dangerous myth. Because some of the most powerful work in life happens away from the crowd, in the quiet, in the unseen. In the ordinary moments nobody applauds and very few notice. And if you're not careful, you'll miss your purpose, trying to prove yourself to people who can't give you your identity. You don't need a stage to be significant. The stage is temporary, the spotlight fades, and the praise of people is fickle. One day they love you, the next they forget you. But your purpose? That's not given to you by the crowd. It was placed inside you long before the crowd ever showed up. And sometimes, purpose is proven not in popularity but in perseverance, not in applause but in anonymity. Some of your most defining moments will come when nobody's watching to affirm you, because that's where you find out who you really are. The shadows don't mean you've failed. The shadows mean you're being shaped. That dark season, it's not punishment, it's preparation. It's where character is built, where habits are tested, where integrity is formed. Anybody can perform in public, but can you stay disciplined in private? Can you hold on to vision when no one's clapping? Can you keep showing up, giving your best, When it feels like no one even sees you, that's significance, that's purpose. It's easy to chase the platform, but the platform without the preparation becomes a pedestal that collapses under pressure. The shadows are where your roots grow deep, where your motives get purified, where your values get solidified. That's why some people get to the top but can't stay there. They skip the shadows. They fast-forwarded the process. They wanted elevation without formation. And what you build fast, you have to maintain in panic. But what you build in the shadows, that's sustainable. Purpose is forged in the fire of obscurity, when you don't feel chosen, when the doors don't open, when the spotlight passes you by. That's when you learn to trust in something bigger than the crowd. That's when you find your why. Because if you're only working hard when people are watching, you're not working for purpose, you're working for validation. And validation is a drug that will always leave you chasing your next hit. But purpose? Purpose grounds you. It holds you steady. It reminds you that you don't have to be seen to be strategic. Every great movement, every lasting legacy started in the shadows. A small decision, a private act of obedience, a commitment nobody clapped for. Seeds planted in the dark long before the harvest showed up. But we live in a microwave culture that wants microwave results. We want purpose without the process. But real purpose is slow cooked. It's built in the secret place. Not on stages, but in seasons of silence, struggle, and surrender. You might feel buried right now, but you're not buried, you're planted. And there's a difference. Buried means forgotten, but planted means you're being prepared. Something is growing. Something is forming. But it's happening beneath the surface. Just because people can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. Some of the greatest breakthroughs begin in invisible places. And if you stay faithful in the hidden seasons, what's hidden will eventually become harvest. Significance doesn't scream. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't need a microphone. It's found in everyday faithfulness, in staying committed to your assignment, in honoring your values when it would be easier to compromise, in building when no one is applauding, and trusting when nothing makes sense. That's the kind of significance that lasts. It's easy to assume that the people on the stage are the most important, but the truth is sometimes the most significant people are behind the scenes. They're not getting awards, they're not trending, but they're changing lives. They're showing up, they're making sacrifices, they're pouring into others. And you'd be surprised how many public victories are built on the back of someone's private faithfulness. Don't underestimate the power of small obedience, of quiet consistency, of private excellence. It's not glamorous, it won't get you attention, but it will set you apart. Because a lot of people can perform, but very few can endure. A lot of people can show up once, but not everyone can stay when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unnoticed. And that's what separates popularity from purpose. You don't need a million eyes watching to make an impact. You just need the courage to stay faithful to your lane, to run your race, to do your work, not because people are cheering, but because purpose is calling. Not because the world sees, but because your soul knows it matters. Significance is less about visibility and more about vitality. How alive are you in what you're doing? How deeply are you showing up? That's what creates change. Some of the most powerful people aren't in the spotlight. They're in hospitals, nursing their loved ones back to health. They're in schools, shaping the next generation. They're in kitchens, feeding people nobody else cares about. They're in prayer closets, carrying burdens no one else can see. Their work isn't loud, but it's lasting. It's not flashy, but it's faithful. And in a world obsessed with optics, they remind us that obedience still matters. If you measure your worth by visibility, you'll live in insecurity. But when you understand that purpose is internal, not external, you walk in freedom. You stop performing and start producing. You stop competing and start creating. You stop striving and start serving. Because now your significance isn't attached to outcomes, it's anchored in your obedience. The truth is, every stage eventually empties. Every crowd eventually moves on. But the shadows, that's where the real ones are built. That's where the legacy gets shaped. And if you can master that environment, if you can find joy in the mundane, hope in the unseen, and purpose in the small, then when your moment comes, you'll be ready. Not because the lights found you, but because you were faithful in the dark. So stop waiting for the spotlight to validate your voice. Stop waiting for a platform to give you permission to walk in purpose. Your purpose doesn't start when people recognize it. It starts when you respond to it. And sometimes responding to it means being okay with going unnoticed. It means being okay with people not understanding. It means being okay with building quietly, slowly, and sacrificially. The world may not reward you for faithfulness, but heaven keeps score. And impact isn't always immediate. Sometimes the work you're doing now will bear fruit you won't even see. But that doesn't mean it's not worth it. You're planting something that someone else will harvest. You're building something someone else will stand on. That's significance. Purpose is not a moment, it's a mindset. It's not a title, it's a testimony. It's not a position, it's a posture. And once you understand that, you stop chasing moments that feel big and start embracing moments that are meaningful. Because sometimes the most meaningful thing you'll ever do won't have a camera on it. It won't come with recognition, but it will be the very thing that sets someone else free. You don't need to be front and center to be effective. You don't need the mic to have a message. You don't need followers to have fruit. What you need is focus, discipline, consistency, passion, and a commitment to doing what you were called to do, whether anyone sees it or not. Because here's the truth. If you're faithful in the shadows, the impact will speak for itself. Maybe not today, maybe not next year, but eventually, because purpose always outlives applause. And your legacy will be determined not by how many people saw you, but by how many people were served by you. So don't despise the shadows. Embrace them. That's where purpose is proven. That's where identity is refined. That's where significance is born. Not in the noise, but in the discipline of silence. Not in the spotlight, but in the substance of staying. Keep showing up, keep building, keep serving, keep sowing, because even in the shadows you are seen. Even in the silence, you are shaping something eternal. You may not have the stage, but you already have the significance. And it's enough. 4. Comfort is a cage and you can't grow where you won't go. Comfort feels good, let's not lie about it. It's warm, predictable, familiar. It doesn't challenge you, doesn't ask questions, doesn't push you. It lets you stay in the shallow end of life, where your feet touch the floor and the water's never too deep. But the truth is, nothing great has ever come from comfort. Comfort is a cage dressed up like a gift. It's a trap that looks like a blessing. It lulls you into believing that safe is the same as secure, but what it really does is lock the door to your destiny and hide the key behind your fear. You can't grow where you won't go. Growth requires movement. It requires friction. It requires risk. It requires the willingness to let go of what's easy, so you can grab hold of what's essential. And most people never step into the fullness of who they are because they're still chained to the comfort of who they used to be. They don't want to give up the familiar pain, the predictable schedule, the manageable struggle. They'd rather be comfortably miserable than courageously free. But what if I told you that everything you're praying for is waiting outside your comfort zone? What if I told you that your purpose is bigger than your patterns? What if the reason you feel stuck isn't because you're not capable, but because you're too comfortable? You've mastered surviving, but you've never committed to thriving. And the moment you start to stretch, comfort whispers, sit back down. This is too hard. What if you fail? What if they laugh? But here's the real question. What if you don't try? What if you stay where it's safe and forfeit the life you were born to live? Comfort wants you small. It wants you quiet. It wants you unsure, indecisive, always second-guessing your next move. It wants you scared of the unknown, addicted to routine, terrified of change, and it sounds just like reason. It disguises itself as wisdom. But at its core, it's a lie. A beautiful, dangerous lie. Because comfort doesn't just stop you from taking risks, it stops you from discovering who you really are. Growth demands that you walk through discomfort. You have to feel the stretch. You have to face the unknown. You have to step into rooms where you're not the smartest, the fastest, or the most experienced, and trust that you're still meant to be there. You have to break the habit of only doing what feels easy and start doing what grows endurance. That's how you build character. That's how you build legacy. That's how you build a life worth living. And no, it's not supposed to feel good all the time. It's not supposed to be easy. Anything that transforms you will test you. Anything that shapes you will shake you. If growth didn't hurt, everybody would do it. But comfort convinces you that pain means stop. Growth tells you that pain means stretch. And those who win in life are the ones who learn how to stretch without snapping, how to push through without giving in, how to trust the process even when it's uncomfortable. That job you're scared to apply for, that dream you keep putting off, That relationship you need to end? That city you've been thinking of moving to? That conversation you've been avoiding? All of those things are outside your comfort zone. And until you learn to live beyond what's easy, you'll stay locked in what's empty. Because comfort never satisfies, it just sedates. It dulls your senses, it dims your fire, and it slowly convinces you to settle. Comfort tells you to wait for the perfect moment. Growth tells you to move even when it's messy. Comfort says, know all the answers first. Growth says, take the step and learn on the way. Comfort wants control. Growth requires surrender. You cannot grow and cling to comfort at the same time. One has to go, and the one you choose will determine the life you live. You don't become strong by sitting still. You don't build faith by avoiding the fight. You don't develop discipline by always choosing what's easy. You build when you show up tired. You grow when you press through fear. You rise when you take the step even though your voice shakes and your knees tremble. That's where the transformation happens. Not in the moment you feel ready, but in the moment you choose to move anyway. The truth is, you already know what you need to do, but comfort keeps talking you out of it. You've had the idea, you've seen the vision, you've felt the conviction. But every time you get close to action, comfort starts spinning the same lies. Now's not the time, you're not good enough, it's too risky. What will people say? And so you shrink, you delay, you settle, and then you wonder why life feels stagnant. Life isn't waiting for you to feel comfortable, it's waiting for you to get courageous. Because courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the refusal to be ruled by it. You can be scared and still show up. You can be nervous and still act. You can feel unqualified and still start. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't confidence, it's commitment. A decision to say, even if it stretches me, even if it scares me, even if it's messy, I will move. You don't need more time, you don't need more approval, you don't need more motivation. What you need is movement. Just take the step, open the door, make the call, submit the application. Book the flight, end the habit, set the boundary, shift the routine. Whatever you do, don't stay in the cage of comfort, because that cage doesn't protect you, imprisons you. And the crazy part is, the moment you finally step out, you realize the cage was never locked. It just looked like it. The door was always open, you just needed the courage to walk through it. That's how it works. Growth doesn't happen when everything is aligned and perfect. Growth happens the moment you decide that comfort can no longer be your master. Nobody gets stronger in a hammock. Nobody builds endurance on a couch. Nobody becomes unstoppable while living unchallenged. You become who you're meant to be by leaning into the hard stuff, by showing up when it's inconvenient, by facing what's uncomfortable, by choosing what's difficult, not because you like pain, but because you love progress. And the more you do it, the more you realize that growth was never the enemy comfort was, that the very things you were running from were the things that would have freed you, that the fear you let hold you hostage was really a signal telling you, there's more out there. Go find it. And the moment you stop making excuses and start making moves, you step into a version of yourself that you didn't even know existed. You won't find that version in comfort. That version lives in challenge. That version wakes up in sacrifice. That version shows up in the storm, in the fire, in the trial. And it's not always pretty, but it's powerful. Because that version doesn't just react, it rises. That version leads. That version builds. That version creates. That version impacts others. And that version is already in you, but it's waiting for you to break free from the cage, to stop choosing what's easy and start choosing what's essential, to stop settling for survival and start chasing significance. You were made for more than comfort. You were made to grow. You were made to lead. You were made to move. So the next time comfort calls, ask yourself, is this helping me grow or just helping me stay stuck? Is this fueling my future or just feeding my fear? Because your future is too valuable to sacrifice for a little convenience. Your calling is too costly to trade for comfort, and your destiny is too deep to fit inside a shallow life. If it doesn't stretch you, it won't strengthen you. If it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. If it doesn't move you, it won't make you. So break the habit, leave the comfort zone, step into the unknown. That's where the breakthrough lives. That's where the growth happens. That's where your real life begins. Because comfort might feel good for a moment, but freedom? Freedom lasts forever.